Have you ever pondered how a failed artist could ascend to the helm of one of history's most infamous regimes? This question introduces us to the enigma that was Adolf Hitler, a man whose life took a dramatic turn from an aspiring painter to the dictator of Nazi Germany. Born in Braunau am Inn, Austria in 1889, Hitler's early life was marked by a failed career as an artist. He was twice rejected by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, a rejection that would set the stage for the tumultuous journey ahead. Imagine the scene, a young man dejected, adrift in Vienna, his dreams of becoming a renowned painter crushed. Yet, this wasn't the end for Hitler. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that would drastically alter the course of history. In the wake of World War I, Hitler found himself drawn into the world of politics. Germany was in a state of turmoil, its economy crippled by war debts and its people disillusioned by the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. It was in this socio-economic climate that Hitler began to gain traction. His fiery speeches filled with nationalist rhetoric resonated with the masses, and his charisma, coupled with their desperation, made for a potent combination. Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, which would later evolve into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or more infamously known as the Nazi Party. Rising through the ranks, Hitler soon became the party's leader. His vision of a racially pure state and his promise to restore Germany's lost glory captivated the German populace, pushing him further into the spotlight. Thus began Hitler's journey, a path that would lead him to become the dictator of the Nazi Party. This was a journey marked by manipulation, charisma, and a desperate population seeking a way out of their socio-economic despair. The stage was set for Hitler's rise to power, a rise that would have devastating consequences for the world. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the rise of the Third Reich in the next scene. From the ashes of the Weimar Republic rose the Third Reich, a regime that would shake the world to its core. In the early 30s, Germany was a nation in turmoil, wrestling with the aftermath of a devastating war and a crippling economic depression. Into this landscape stepped an unlikely figure, Adolf Hitler, a man with a vision for a new Germany, and the charisma to sell it. Hitler's rise wasn't an overnight success. It was a calculated climb to power, marked by shrewd manipulation of the political landscape. His party, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, more commonly known as the Nazi Party, began as a fringe group. However, through a blend of fiery speeches, promises of restored national pride, and a scapegoat for Germany's woes, Hitler managed to turn the Nazi Party into a formidable political force. By the end of 1932, the Nazi Party was the largest in the Reichstag, Germany's parliament. But this wasn't enough for Hitler. He wanted absolute power, and he was willing to play a dangerous political game to get it. In January 1933, through backroom dealings and political maneuvering, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Yet the real turning point came a few months later, in March 1933, with the passing of the Enabling Act. This law effectively gave Hitler the power to enact laws without the involvement of the Reichstag. It was a critical moment that marked the transition from a fragile democracy to a totalitarian regime. With this act, Hitler could rule by decree, bypassing all checks and balances that had been in place. The Enabling Act was the cornerstone of Hitler's dictatorship. It allowed him to consolidate his power, suppress dissent, and shape Germany into the militaristic state that would wage the Second World War. It marked the official birth of the Third Reich, a regime that would hold the world in its grip for over a decade. With the stroke of a pen, Hitler had dismantled democracy and set the stage for a brutal dictatorship. What happens when power is unchecked and fear becomes a tool of governance? A chilling question that finds its answer in the Reign of Terror under Adolf Hitler's regime. The period, beginning in the mid-30s and stretching until the end of World War II, was marked by atrocities that shook the world to its core. The Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history, was perpetrated under Hitler's rule. 6 million Jews were systematically exterminated in concentration and extermination camps, their lives cut short by a regime that propagated hate and intolerance. But the terror did not stop at the borders of Germany. Hitler's ambitions of world domination led to the outbreak of World War II, a conflict that spanned continents and claimed the lives of an estimated 75 million people. Cities were reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and entire generations scarred by the horrors of war. Yet it wasn't just brute force that sustained Hitler's reign of terror. A well-oiled propaganda machine worked tirelessly behind the scenes, shaping the narrative and controlling the information that reached the public. Hitler's speeches, filled with fiery rhetoric and grand promises, were broadcast across the nation, instilling fear and obedience in the hearts of his listeners. The media was tightly controlled, with newspapers and radio stations parroting the regime's ideology and suppressing any form of dissent. The regime also manipulated education, indoctrinating children with Nazi propaganda and molding them into loyal followers of the Führer. The Hitler Youth and the League of German Girls were instrumental in this, shaping the minds of the young and preparing them for service to the Reich. This reign of terror was not just about the physical violence inflicted upon millions. It was also about the psychological warfare, the manipulation of minds, and the creation of a climate of fear and intolerance. Under Hitler's iron fist, Germany plunged into a nightmare of unprecedented horror. A horror that serves as a grim reminder of the destructive power of hate and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked power. Every reign has its end, and Hitler's was no exception. As World War II raged on, Hitler's government started to crumble under the mounting pressures of the Allied forces. The Allies, united in their resolve to end the tyranny of the Third Reich, launched the D-Day invasion in June of 1944. This marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime. The invasion of Normandy was a decisive turning point in the war. It marked the start of a grueling battle for control over Western Europe. The Allied forces, comprising nations from across the globe, fought fiercely to reclaim territories occupied by the Nazis. The relentless advances of the Allies gradually pushed the Nazi forces back, eating away at the once formidable Third Reich. Meanwhile, in the bunker beneath the Chancellery in Berlin, Hitler was rapidly losing his grip on reality. As the Allies closed in on Berlin, the once charismatic leader was increasingly isolated and paranoid. The end was near, and Hitler could see it coming. In April of 1945, he made the decision to take his own life. Hitler's suicide signaled the end of his reign. But even in death, the impact of his rule was far from over. The aftermath of his government was a devastated Europe, ravaged by war and scarred by the atrocities of the Holocaust. His reign had brought untold suffering and death to millions. The surrender of Nazi Germany came shortly after Hitler's death. On the 7th of May 1945, the German High Command officially surrendered to the Allies, marking the end of World War II in Europe. The fall of Hitler's government brought a sigh of relief to a world that had been holding its breath for 6 long years. Hitler's reign ended in ruin, leaving a scar on human history that will never fade. The fall of his government marked the end of a dark chapter in human history, a chapter that serves as a stark reminder of the destruction that can be wrought when power falls into the wrong hands. What lessons can we glean from the rise and fall of Hitler's government? This question echoes through the annals of history, prompting us to reflect on a dark period marked by tyranny and destruction. Hitler's government, also known as the Third Reich, emerged in a time of economic despair and national humiliation, exploiting the desperation of the people. It promised prosperity and strength, but delivered devastation and oppression. The rise of the Third Reich serves as a stark example of how easily a society can be swayed by charismatic leaders who exploit fear and uncertainty. During its reign, Hitler's government committed unspeakable atrocities. It propagated a culture of hate, leading to one of the darkest chapters in human history, the Holocaust. The horrific magnitude of this genocide is a chilling reminder of the depths humanity can plunge to under oppressive regimes. It underscores the importance of vigilance against hate, bigotry, and the dehumanization of others. The fall of Hitler's government came as a result of concerted resistance, both internally and externally. It marked the end of a brutal era, but the scars of its reign remain. The resilience of those who survived, those who resisted, and those who fought against it is a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. It reminds us of the power of unity, courage, and determination in the face of oppression. Reflecting on Hitler's government, we are reminded that history is not just a series of events, but a continuum of lessons. It teaches us the importance of critical thinking, the dangers of apathy, and the necessity of standing up against injustice. It prompts us to question, to challenge, and to act. While the shadow of Hitler's government looms large in history, it serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the resilience of humanity in the face of adversity. It's a sobering lesson we must carry forward, not just in memory, but in action. We must remember, reflect, and learn, because those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.